How are you all doing? I need more sound. How are you all doing? Great, good. So, okay, before we start the sermon, I thought let's play a game. How many of you are interested playing a game? Good. I only see some off hands, some back hands. Good. So we're gonna have some riddles. Let's see. So it's riddle time. Are you all ready? I just heard one yes. Are you all ready? Great. Okay, the first riddle. Let's see who answers it. Right. Oh yeah, let's get the mics to them. Yeah, sorry. Thank you, bro. So let's go with our first riddle. What has hands but can't clap?
Gloves.
Gloves. That's a good guess.
A clock.
A clock. I think both of you should not answer. You might be knowing most of the thing. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that's a clock. Yeah, clock has hands, right? Okay, let's go with our next riddle. Next one. What is orange in color and it has green on top and sounds like a parrot? I don't want you guys to answer. Both Jen and Jesse should not answer. Let's give chances to other kids. Yeah. Can you guess? It's orange in color. It has a green on the top. Any guesses? Sounds like parrot. Focus on that. That's a clue. Sounds like a parrot.
Macau.
Cow is orange and
It's called Macau.
Macau, okay.
Wait, not toucan or Macau. I don't know.
But the answer is, when I say Jesse,
Carrot.
carrot. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Carrot. It sounds like parrot, right? Yeah. So that's the clue. I said sounds like parrot, right? Okay. Next one. So what falls many times a year but never gets hurt?
Water.
Water, you're so close. Water, you're so close.
Gravity.
Rain, yeah, that's the right answer. Rain, good guess. Yeah, it falls many times a year, right? Good. Next one. Let's see who finds us. You see me once in June, twice in November, but never in May.
E. The letter E.
Yeah, good guess. Good. How you got it? Yeah, I thought this would be a tough one, but you got it. The letter E. Yeah. The next one. The next one is a tricky one. Let's see. What's as big as elephant but weighs nothing?
Ant.
No, ant is not as big as elephant. What's as big as elephant but weighs nothing?
Gravity.
Huh?
Gravity.
Gravity. uh, yeah. You want to know the answer?
Clouds.
Huh?
Clouds.
Clouds? Yeah, but clouds at least weigh something, right? This says, the question says it weighs nothing. Yeah, Jesse, Jay, do you want to go? I know you guys know the answer, so let's go with the answer. Right.
Elephant's shadow.
Yeah, that's an elephant's shadow. That's as big as. Yeah, nice. So, who, That's with the riddles. Now let's go into our topic. But before we go into a topic, how many of you remember the last two sermons that Uncle taught?
It's all about great people who spoke about God.
Yeah, who stood the fire of test, right? That's one thing. Remember, there were one missionary story. There were two missionary stories we discussed. Remember, one is from a person who served in the state of Orissa. Yeah. Anyone remembers their names? Remember, their sons were burnt alive in a jeep, and his wife stood the fire of test where even though her husband and the sons were killed, they still served God. They still were doing mission service in the same place. Do you remember the missionary's name?
All I know is that his name is Gladys.
Gladys. Wow, that's good. That's good memory. Yeah, you're so right. Yeah. So his name Graham Staines, right? Graham Staines is that person, and his wife name was Gladys Staines, right? And the next time Uncle taught about another missionary
John
story.
Muller.
George Muller. Yay! Give a clap to him. Yeah, that's so nice, right? Awesome, right? George Muller. You remember what George Muller did? He did a mission service in the United Kingdom called the place called Bristol, where there was a lot of street kids. Remember, the street kids were all. You want to say something?
He made the Ashley Down Orphanage.
Yeah, you're right. He built up an orphanage there, right? Yeah. So there were a lot of street kids there, and he was serving for them, right? So
Also, his income was from two German people who worked him as a translator.
you're right. Yeah. Wow. You guys remember so many things. Good. Great. Yeah. So now I think we can move forward. Today we also going to see another missionary story. As Uncle thought I'll take one missionary story each time I come here, right? So those are the two missionaries that we've seen in the past, right? So this week we're going to see about another missionary story called William Carey. Have you ever heard of his name, William Carey?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. Today we'll see him, right? What all things he did for God, right? This is a famous quote from him, right? Expect great things from God and attempt great things for God. So whenever we say William Carey, this quote reminds us, right? This is a famous quote from him, right? So everybody remembers this quote, right? When we say about William Carey, right? He says, a person, right, should expect great things, right? At the same time, we should also attempt great things. God is going to make us great in his mission work, in his purpose for us in our life, right? To accomplish his will in our life, right? So we have to expect great things from God, right? And we should also attempt great things for God, right? That's what William Carey's statement was, right? So before we go into his life, right? Let's go to the next slide. There is one thing that he did, right? I'm not sure whether you could see it clearly. This is a current picture of the college that he has established in the state of West Bengal, right? That's called Srirampur College. That's still there. Again, he served as a missionary in India in a state called West Bengal, right? This is from Wikipedia where it says about the current state. And the founder, you could see, one of them was William Carey. William Carey and his friends together founded this college, right? So in India, he served. He did so many. He built up so many churches, and also he helped in translating Bible in so many languages. Right? And also he helped to abolish some of the superstitions that were followed in those days. So we're going to see all this in detail, but let's go from where he was born, how he came to this achievement, how God used him, right? Are you all ready? Charged up? Let's look into that, right? So he was in England. He was born in England for a moderate family, right? His father's name was Edmund, right? He was working as a clerk in a church called Church of England. Again, Church of England is like a denomination, like how we have Baptist, Methodist, right? In England, they have a denomination of Church of England, which is a very orthodox church, right? And his father was serving as a clerk there, right? So those days, serving in a church is a prestigious job for them, right? Um, so he has a natural gift of languages. So God has given him a natural talent of easily learning a language. So he learned so many languages while he was in England, right? So whenever God calls somebody for a mission, He also equips them with a gift, right? And then He gives them grace and also fulfills the purpose that He has for them using those gifts, right? So in his life, he has naturally got a talent for languages. In our life too, we may have gifts, right? Some may have a gift of singing, right? Some may have a gift of convincing people, right? Good speech, right? So God has given you these gifts, these talents for a purpose, right? At the right time, right? When we start obeying God, listening to God's voice, right? At the right time, He will use us and He'll use our gifts for His glory, right? That's what happened in William Carey's life too. At this young age, he didn't know why he has got those gifts, but only later on he realized, the reason for having those gifts, right? As a young friend, he went to his Orthodox church called Church of England, right? So where they did everything without a reason, like because they've been following traditions in the church, so they didn't know what they're doing the things for, but they were just following it like how they follow in Orthodox churches, right? But he had a friend called John Warr, right? He belongs to a dissenter group. That's a group where like an individual church, right? So both William Carey and John used to argue, used to have many debates, right? That's when most of the times William Carey used to win those debates, but just for sake of argument purpose. Later on, he know those things were not right, but just for sake of winning the argument, he would argue it. But later on, after coming back from his friend, right, he used to sit and think, oh, what I'm doing, right? Whatever I'm arguing, is it really right? When is God with all those traditional works, or he's looking for a heart with an open mind, right? So that opened his eyes. He started reading Bible with an open heart, right? After all these arguments with his friend, he started to read Bible with an open heart, and God touched his heart, right? And then he accepted Jesus Christ, right? He was born in a Christian family. He didn't sincerely follow Jesus until that point, right? One day he sat down and then thought, okay, I should stop arguing about all these traditions and should follow Christ. And then he started reading Bible and God touched his heart, right? From the very moment, right, there was also a urge in his heart that now he enjoys this gospel freedom in his heart, right? He also wants other people in this world to also have the same freedom like how he felt, right? So in his early life, he also married to a person called Dorothy, and they had 7 children, and 2 of them died in the infant stage itself. So his wife is mentally not stable, so he had other challenges too in his personal life. And then with 3 of his friends, he founded the Baptist Missionary Society, right? He was talking with his friends. He was also influencing them that we should form a missionary society, right, which would spread gospel to the other parts of the world, not just keeping the gospel for themselves, right? So he had this urge in his heart, and that what made him to be the founder of this missionary society. Right? Let's go to the next slide. So with that mission society being founded, right? He was talking to that missionary in a meeting, right? In the organization where the Baptist Missionary Society was founded, right? One day there was a friend who named called John Thomas, right? He was a medical missionary. He came back from Calcutta. He came to England to raise funds, right? And he met William Carey, and that's where it sparkled William Carey that he need to act now, right? It's time for him to, instead of just talking, he want him to be an example, right? So he said that he's willing to, instead of just talking, right? He also wrote a book called, a famous book called, I forgot the book name, but uh, where he mentioned about all the how a mission work should be done, right? So he had explained how all a mission work should be done, right? So now it's time. He realized that it's time for him to put all those things that he have mentioned in the book into practice, right? But there were two challenges during that time, right? He wants to go to India along with his friend John Thomas, right, who is a doctor. But at the time, there were two challenges. One, there was a war going on between England and France, right? So those days, they have to go through the ships. They don't have airplanes, right? So they cannot go close to England, close to France, because there was a war happening between France and England, right? Another is the British East India Company, right? So British East India Company is what is governing all parts of India for the trade, right? And for the business, right? They were doing trade, they were getting commodities from India, right? And they were selling it in England, right? So they're doing trade, right? So though the British East India Company, right, had totally forbidden all missionary works in India, right? The reason is that they don't want to upset the locals in India, right? So they said they didn't open any doors for missionary work in India. So those are two challenges, and also Dorothy's wife, right? She's also unwilling to travel. She's like, it's a new land, I don't want to travel, right? But now he has those challenges in front of him, right? There are some visa challenges, like his permit, travel challenges, and also on the personal side, he also needs to convince his family, right? He did both, right? And he traveled with his friend John Thomas, right? And then after 5 months of travel in a ship, they arrived in Calcutta, right? So once they arrived, right, they did not get a good welcome, right? They were being looked upon like strangers, right? They were in a foreign land, right? They were white people on a land in India, right? During those times, British have colonized India, right? So those locals, right, the people in India at that time, right, they were under the slavery of Britishers, right? So they as if the white people approaches them, those locals were not easily approachable, right? One, they were scared, and second thing, they thought these white people are coming to convert them, right? To influence their religion on us, right? So those people were not easily approachable, and third, they don't want to leave all their traditions, right? Let's go to the next slide. So for the first 6 years, he had to go through a lot of struggles, right? One, he did not have much help on the financial side. There was not much help. And there was not much of support from the local people too. Even though he's preaching, right, he's telling gospel, there is not he is not seeing any results, right? And the East India Company is also prohibited people from doing their missionary work, right? They don't want the missionaries to come there and do preach there because they thought that would affect their trade, right? So the East India Company is not also in favor of them, right? So there were political situations which is not in favor of him. Financially he was very down, he did not get any support. So he had to work in a company. It's a dye making plant for 6 years, right? And as he is working there, right, he also made his first revision of a Bengali New Testament. He learned Bengali, that's a foreign language to him. So he learned Bengali and he wrote his first translation of the New Testament in Bengali. And meanwhile, since that's a new place, right, his son had contacted malaria and he died, his 5-year-old son. So Dorothy, right, his wife, who had already was mentally not stable, right, that took her to a peak of her mental instability, right? So now now he has a wife who's totally mentally not stable. So personally, he has so many challenges, and politically, he has so many challenges. So for a moment, he thought, "Oh, it's so much of stress, so much of challenges on this side. Should I still continue doing this mission work? And instead, I'm ready to preach, but there is nobody to listen. The locals are not ready to listen because they don't want a white man to come and preach there." Right? So he was so upset, and he was even thinking that, "Oh, is this your will?" But in spite of that, he also saw all the superstitions that those Indian people were following there. One is sati. So what is the sati is, right? Um, in those days, right, a girl has been married to a boy at a very early stage itself, right? Like when they are 12 years, 13 years itself, they got married, right? That's how in olden days it was, right? And when the husband dies, right, there is a tradition that the wife should also be um, she should also be thrown into, whenever the husband's body is cremated, right, burned into the fire. They would say that wife should voluntarily give her life also, so as a sacrifice, right? They at those days they thought that's a pure way of living for a woman, right? So if a woman is not doing that, if a woman is, they force the woman to do that, right? Whenever the husband died, they also forced the woman to be also cremated along with the husband, which is very cruel. So he saw in front of his eyes all those superstitions, right? And there are also infant sacrifices, right? Um, those days they also had where they had this Ganges river and where people throw their young babies into the river as a sacrifice to their gods. So these moments touched William Carey's heart. He wanted to do something to this, to stop these, right? He saw at one side he has so many challenges. On the other side, he saw people, right, who are following a wrong God, right, who are also following wrong superstitions, which is so foolish. They are taking away innocent kids' life and also innocent woman's life. So he wanted to stop all these. At the same time, he also wanted to spread gospel. He wanted to do it in the right way. He wanted to teach them about Jesus Christ and tell them about the living God, and then stop all these superstitions. Right? So for 6 years, he couldn't do anything, right? Whatever he did was in vain, but that didn't stop William Carey, right? He had in his heart a burden for these people because the love of Christ, is what is flowing through him, right? So at the seventh year, there was a first convert. There is a first fruit that he got. There was one person who got converted. His name is Krishna Pal. Right? So what happened was this Krishna Pal was doing his superstitions in a river, and then he was coming back and he fell down. So his shoulder got dislocated. And remember, there was a doctor who came with William Carey during his first time visit, Dr. John Thomas, right? Thomas John. He visited him during that time, and he and William Carey took care of that Krishna Paul, right? He helped them to fix their dislocation, right? And then told them that Jesus really loves him, right? Then William Carey gave his first Bible to him, the Bible that he translated in Bengali to him, and asked him to read in his family, along with his family members. And Krishna Paul read that Bible along with his family, and those words touched him. Those words touched Krishna, right? And he was the first convert who gave up his life for Jesus Christ, right? And William Carey was so happy with that. There is a video we can watch where this scene is been given. Let's watch that video. local society. That's what he was telling, that people would not accept what he's doing, right? He cannot eat with white people or a person with another caste, right? But still that person said he's going to do it because he's truly believing in Jesus Christ now, right? So that was William Carey's first fruit for after 6-7 years, right? On the 7th year, right? He ripe his first fruit, right? So the previous slide, sorry. So he and his friend also got a press, right? And they printed Bible in various languages. So after all this done, these news also went to England, right? And what did their government did, right? So they all had a discussion that the missionaries were doing all this in India, but they're also fearing that East India Company is not giving them permit. So they, in England, there was also a discussion, and finally they passed a law that they should allow missionaries into India and to preach gospel. Right? So all these works of missionaries like William Carey, right, paved a way for a change in the political process itself. Right? And he along with his friend, right, he built up that Srirampur College, and he also spoke with the governor, right, in his later days to abolish the two things that touched his heart. One is sati and sacrifice. So the governor later signed a law saying that he is abolishing both of these superstitions. So nobody would, from that time onwards, allowed to either do an infant sacrifice or sati. Right? So let's look at the achievements of accomplishments that he did. Right? A normal person like us, right, who, when he surrendered his life to God, God used him mightily in a foreign land. So these are some of the accomplishments in his life. One, he founded a Baptist missionary society, right? Nobody at the time was even thinking about spreading gospel to another country, right? So he formed a society there, and he said that it's Christians should preach gospel to others, to other parts of the country, right? So he founded that missionary society, and he served 41 years in India. It's a long time, right? And he translated Bible in 6 different languages, and also parts of the Bible in like New Testament or some other part of the gospel in 29 other languages. And he abolished sati and infant sacrifice, and he founded more than 100 rural schools and also a college. And finally, right, many heard about Jesus Christ through him and were saved. We saw one example on the video, right? But there were many that were saved through William Carey. Right. Let's go to the next slide. So this was his words to one of his friends. He says, Mr. Duff was his friend's name. Mr. Duff, you have been speaking about Dr. Carey, right? But he said, when I'm gone, say nothing about Dr. Carey. No, don't speak too much about Carey, but speak about Dr. Carey's Savior. Right? He said, when I'm gone, right, talk more about my Savior, right, not about me. Right? That was his wish. Right? This shows what kind of a person he is. Right? So let's go to our Bible passage for today. Right? Let's look at Hebrews chapter 12. Right? What does it say? Since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, right? We have so many witnesses, both in the Bible, and also we are also seeing many missionary stories. They're all witnesses to us, right? It says, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely to us, right? So things that that distracts us from our God's purposes, right? Or any weight or any sinful things that distracts us, let's lay aside, right? And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, right? God has a purpose for us, a mission for all of us, right? So let's run that race and looking to Jesus, right? The founder and perfecter of our faith, right? Our only goal in front of us is Jesus, right? So we have to look at Him and run this race, the challenge that God has given us in this life, right? So Jesus is a good example. Why we have to look at Jesus? Because He's a good example for us. He says, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, right? Jesus did the same thing, right? Jesus had a challenge, right? He had to go through the cross, but He endured it for the joy that was set before Him, right? The Bible verse is also telling the same thing, like how Jesus did. Let's focus on the joy that is before us. When we go back, when we go to heaven, when we have accomplished what God's mission is for us in our life, right? There is a greater reward for us. So let's focus on that and then endure this journey, despising the shame and is seated at the right hand of God, right, on the throne of God, like how Jesus did, right? We should follow the same example and endure all these challenges. Right? For a simple person like William Carey, if God can use him, how more God can use us, right? All that it needs is surrendering us to God's will, right? Just, God, whatever your will is in my life, right? If you say that, God, I'm surrendering it, God is going to use you all mightily in the future, right? So let's close our eyes. Let's ask God. It says we have so many witnesses in front of us, right? We have witnesses in the Bible, right? All the disciples died, gave their life as a sacrifice for Jesus, right? We have so many witnesses. In the New Testament, it's full of the stories of all those witnesses, how they faced all those challenges, how they did the mission work in spite of them, right? We also saw today William Carey's life. He had so many challenges, right, in his personal life, right? His wife is not ill. He lost his son. If he had to tell excuses, he could have given so many excuses, right? Because his situations were like that, right? But he didn't give any excuse for his mission work, right? He willfully submitted himself for God's work, God's purposes in his life. So can we also ask the same thing? Can we tell God, I'm submitting my life to you, Lord. Whatever it's your purpose that you have for me, Lord, I'm willing to do that. Let's surrender our life to God's purposes, and God will equip us with the talents that's needed for His purposes, and He'll use us in the right time for His glory. God, I thank you for this time, O God. Thank you for speaking to the kids, Lord. Lord, thank you that you gave us these words for the kids. Let them humble themselves. Let these words speak to them. Let them meditate on these words. And I'm very happy that they're surrendering their lives for your purposes, O God. Bless them, and I'm sure you're going to use them in the future, O God, for your mighty purposes. In Jesus' name, amen.